Chickadee China, the Chinese chicken.
Yeah, with drumstick and your brain starts ticking.
That song is weird.
Isn't it?
I mean, there's the whole bit about him finding the Sailor Scouts hot, which is also weird. So, I mean, this is a strange song. Anyway, how are you guys doing?
I'm doing alright.
That's good. There is a third voice, but he's electing not to say anything.
We started?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we started.
Sorry. It's been so long since we just recorded one of these that I was like, is there an intro? I'm just gonna go.
Let's we can beat around the bush, but let's be honest here, fellas. The big dick in the locker room has got to be the OGL crisis.
Yep. Wizards of the Coast done fucked it. They done fucked it real bad, folks. Just before we start talking about it, just my position on it currently is still just cautiously optimistic, but that keeps going down the more statements they keep putting out.
Yeah, I think Mark Holmes?
It's Holmes.
Mark Holmes.
Real quick, I will fully admit to I don't really understand a lot of the technical side of things, so a lot of this does go over my head.
Gotcha. Well, this is a great chance for us to kind of maybe explain both to him and to perhaps viewers who aren't in the loop either. A very sanded down, quick and easy version of what exactly is the problem. And I think one of the first things to mention in the story is a little story that popped up a few months ago that kind of flew under the radar. I mean, it did, but it didn't. And that was I believe she's the CEO of Wizards.
Someone very high up, like in an executive position in either Hasbro or Wizards, basically said D&D wasn't being monetized enough.
Yeah, see, that I saw. It's like, basically, we don't make enough money off of it, and it's like, well, it's not really an IP set up to generate money like that.
Yeah, so it comes down to both the Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast CEOs, in fact. The Wizards of the Coast CEO, Cynthia Williams, made a comment, I think this might have been December, actually, of last year.
Mm-hmm.
Time of this recording is late January. And she basically said that D&D as a brand is like under-monetized, and that you don't see the type of recurring spending that you see in digital games.
Well,
this
tabletops
sort of opinion
aren't like that.
Yeah. This sort of opinion was pretty much echoed by the Hasbro CEO Chris Cox. I'm not gonna say anything about the name. Basically, they kind of described that D&D is under monetized, and the mention of like the kind of recurring spending you see in digital games pretty much read to everybody as microtransactions.
Yeah.
It's not really a surprise, and I don't think that that's a controversial thing to say.
Could you imagine opening D&D Beyond and being greeted with, "Would you like to buy a loot box for $2?"
Oh my god!
Well, fuck off.
And you unlock a random class, a random monster for the monster manual.
So, I think a lot of people.
Yeah, fuck that. Like, oh, you need to pay this to unlock this monster.
Yeah,
fuck you.
And one of the things is like, I think a lot of people originally. Like, I think some of us tried to interpret this statement in a good faith, the most positive interpretation you could get out of it, which would be like, they mean like under monetized as in like, more D&D video games and books and merch. That's like cool. The good faith generous interpretation,
Right.
And like,
but the
and
realistic.
don't get me
you know-
wrong, I would love more books
Oh, me
and
too.
video games and everything set in the various D&D settings.
Absolutely.
Give me a fucking video game set in Eberron.
Yeah. If
Come
that is
on.
what they meant, if that was what they meant, I'd be on board. I would love. Listen, I want a Drist anime more than I think I want any adaptation of anything ever, except an animated Mistborn. I personally want an animated Mistborn, but I think that I want an animated Drist more.
Animated Drist would be so fucking cool.
It would be
Right?
the coolest.
And it would like, people would love it. People who've been, reading Drist for the last 30 years.
Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, Drist, like, yeah, he was memed for a long time because it's like, oh, he's, the perfect protagonist, blah, blah, blah. I get it. But he really is one of the best, like, protagonists.
There's a reason he's been around so long.
Yeah, and
there's a reason he has staying power, yeah.
And also,
there's a reason people beg Salvatore for more of him.
Yeah. And, like, I don't want to derail too long into this topic, so I'm just going to quickly mention, I think Drist would make a fantastic example of a role model of positive masculinity. Like, if
Absolutely.
you read Drist,
absolutely.
And I mean, it's not a surprise that he's a lot like Aragorn in this aspect, because, like, Ranger. That's like, Drist is made to be a fantasy ranger. And I don't think that that's a shortcoming or like a flaw. Like, people forget tropes exist because people like them.
Exactly.
And so, I just think Drist would be such a awesome, like example of positive masculinity to have right now. So yeah, I would love more D&D content. I do not want D&D with microtransactions.
Yeah, I don't want to buy loot boxes for D&D Beyond.
Exactly.
So that statement happened in like December. Everybody kind of forgot about it, and then the OGL leak.
And then the whole leak.
Basically, for anybody who doesn't fully understand, the OGL is essentially a legal agreement that lets you, like, publish D&D content.
Yeah, basically you can use the mechanics of the game and certain other aspects of the game in your own published work.
There are like other legal agreements that let you use D&D terms. 1 second.
It's like a Creative Commons license, kind of, in the sense where, like, you can use certain things just commercially for yourself, for either, like, you can sell it on DM's Guild or you can use it in your own games. And basically that's what D&D has existed under since, I want to say, 3rd edition. I could be wrong, but I believe the original Open Gaming License, that's what OGL stands for, came out when 3rd edition came out. And that's why Paizo was able to do Pathfinder, basically, is because Pathfinder is built on the OGL.
Yeah. The Pathfinder was, what was it originally called? 3.75?
Yeah, people like to call it that because it was based on 3.5 rules.
Right.
So
but that, basically, getting to your point, though, is...
Mm-hmm.
The OGL is what lets you stream D&D games. It's what lets you publish D&D, like, homebrew content on places like DM's Guild and DriveThruRPG. And it's just generally why we have so much community-made content for D&D. And it's, like, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that it's why D&D has succeeded.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah, like, D&D would not be where it is right now without the OGL.
Leaks came out. Basically, Wizards had sent a bunch of, like, like, higher profile community members and, like, content creators in the D&D, social media sphere. Basically, Wizards says that this was a draft. However, it was never stated that it was a draft. These were like basically contracts that were like expected to be signed.
Yeah. Also, I feel like a draft wouldn't have like concrete legalese in it.
Yeah, like these were like legal documents that were like expected to be signed, and they tried to do this like fairly hush hush. Basically, this new drafted I say drafted, that's probably not a good word to use because I use drafted meaning like this newly created, newly written up like version of the OGL. There's a lot of like, vague terminology. It's more or less it had things about like, creators paying royalties to Wizards of the Coast if they made more than a certain amount of money off of D&D. There were things about like
an example with that, like we wouldn't, but like Critical
Role definitely would.
And there were certain things like kind of weird things about like Wizards potentially being able to pretty much take ownership of something published under the new OGL.
And then basically just not give you credit for it at all.
I think what they stated their intention was to be able to sort of remove content published under the OGL that was like hateful or discriminatory, which like cool, but it's
also an incredibly vague statement.
Yeah, because that's hard to put into legal terminology in a way that doesn't allow you to just sort of interpret it however you want, and it's just not something that belongs in an OGL. They're a corporate entity. They have the ability to like issue cease and desist orders and like, and to buy out content that is harmful. And also the OGL, like by its own nature, it kind of makes them, not liable for something that's published, something that's offensive that is published under the OGL because of the way that the OGL exists anyway. It's not like that. Not like Wizards would be held liable for something like that being published.
Right.
So it's
because then wouldn't like a bunch of other companies way back when Fatal came out have been liable because of how they based it off of other shit?
It's pretty much filled with a lot of like vague terminology, and just like there were all sorts of loopholes that basically would let Wizards / Hasbro like either neutralize content or like other competitors or seize content. There were specific sort of like there were specific things against things like VTT,
which is a virtual tabletop. If you don't know.
Right.
So this all came out and the internet exploded. Since then, there's been a lot of reporting, a lot of additional leaks. This has been covered in depth by people much more informed than I think any of us are.
Yeah, if you want to watch a really good video series on it, I highly recommend going to D&D Shorts on YouTube.
Yes, D&D Shorts I think did a great job covering it. He did make mistakes along the way. However, he always at any time that he came to realize that information he presented was wrong or inaccurate or lacking context, he did go back and correct it and update it in like later videos or on his Twitter posts. So I think that he, even though he's not a journalist, he's not a professional journalist, he made mistakes. I think he did a very good job of bringing a lot of information to light.
Doing the layman's coverage of it.
Yeah. Another great source of information about this has been Linda Kodega. You can find them on Twitter, as well as the website gizmodo.com. They have been doing excellent coverage. But basically, something I kind of wanted to get into was one of D&D Short's more recent videos where he talked about, basically, he had been in contact with a lot of employees at Wizards, and he talked about the things that they had leaked to him. And boy, it's grim. Basically, like the picture that he kind of painted in his video, which if you haven't seen it, highly recommend you go watch it. Essentially, the picture I got is, the rank and file, like the design teams and like the normal people working at Wizards of the Coast, they love this game. You know, like people like and this was actually stressed in the people like leaking information to him, that people such as Jeremy Crawford, Jeremy Crawford's name came up a few times. The actual like design team leaders and people like Jeremy Crawford have been trying to, you know, do their best for the game and trying to protect the workers at Wizards from this, you know, from the sort of the policies coming up from like corporate and whatnot. So please do not direct unnecessary like vitriol at like the designers and the workers, especially not at social media managers on Twitter or Twitch. Like that's a waste of your
everybody
effort.
like when it first leaked and D&D Beyond canceled the stream they had scheduled, everybody was like, oh, they're doing it because they're afraid of the backlash. It's like, well, they're not going to put an innocent stream presenter through a bunch of hateful vitriol through Twitch chat, you know?
But more or less, a lot of the language that was described as having happened. Also, we have a new arrival, if we would like to shout that out.
What's up, Nick? Quick. Say hi. You're on camera.
Wait, we're on camera now? What?
No.
What's that? Another company has shown that they want not just some of the money, but all of the money? Filling me surprised.
The recent D&D Shorts video where he shares the insider leaks he's been given, a name that came up pretty much throughout the entire video is one Chris Kao, who is the, I believe, like VP of digital at either Wizards or Hasbro. I'm not entirely sure on that one. That's why I recommend watching the video. Basically, Chris Kao is a fella with lots of experience in like digital, like marketing, a lot of experience in like video games, MMOs, and that is relevant because Chris Kao has allegedly said that he doesn't need to play D&D to like be working on D&D because he has worked successfully on MMOs and other video games, and it's basically all the same. His alleged words.
Oof, buddy.
That's a thing to say.
Oh God, that's just not even true.
So things like that. Allegedly, a lot of language about ideas such as destroying, quote unquote, destroying D&D Beyond, and other sorts of like virtual tabletops, and a lot of the online resources that basically publish D&D content for free, which is what enables anybody to jump in and just play D&D and learn how to play D&D. Basically, like, you know, the people at, you know, the I should say the corpo people at Wizards and Hasbro are pretty much like they're not fans.
They just don't. Yeah, they're not fans, and they don't understand how the game works.
And they're especially not fans of things like D&D Beyond and like, you know, I can't think of a specific example, but the various websites and online resources that provide D&D tools and rules and whatnot for free. They are not fans of those existing. Their goal is to basically see those things like removed or at least sort of neutered so that they can create their own sort of VTT system, an online system that will allow them to basically, if you want to play D&D like with virtual tools, you know, you have to go through Wizards basically. There was something specifically going again back to D&D Shorts where he caught a lot of flack for saying that there was a proposed like subscription service like in the works that would see the highest tier costing $30 per month, and the lower or like free tiers basically not allowing you to have like homebrew and other things like that. A lot of people jumped on him because like some like D&D Beyond employees came out and basically said like that's not true. D&D Beyond doesn't have any plans for something like that. And so that kind of went back and forth for a little bit. However, he revealed in his insider leak video they want to kill D&D Beyond. Like Wizards and like Hasbro do not like D&D Beyond.
It's because D&D Beyond, if I believe, is owned by Fandom, right?
Well, it at first Wizards didn't own D&D Beyond. It just existed like on its own. Some of you might remember that they bought D&D Beyond, and that was basically.
Is this link you're talking about? Is this like an official thing that's been confirmed, or is this just something that is because as far as I remember, the at least from what I've been looking at, Wizards is very, very much paying attention to D&D Beyond. You can show that one of the reasons that when the new OGL, when they started the new OGL that they're telling everyone that happened, is because of the massive subscriber loss that D&D Beyond took.
They lost
according to most
like
sources,
40,000 subs.
And at least according to most of the sources I saw, that Hasbro wasn't looking at anything except practically D&D Beyond subscription. That was the money that they were looking at. So when the only thing that they were paying attention to was D&D Beyond, suddenly lost all of the subscriptions. They went off, and suddenly the new OGL says, "Oh no, this is what's good. We're all winners."
Oh, also,
like, no,
so
I just looked it up. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you go ahead.
I did just look it up. I guess it was April of last year that Hasbro acquired D&D Beyond from Fandom for about $146 million.
For the time being, until like the whole like 1D&D virtual tabletop thing, basically until that is completed, my guess, this right now is just theory crafting, I guess. My guess is that they bought D&D Beyond so that they could sort of like secure the money that was going to D&D Beyond, and they could use it to like build and test things out and figure out how exactly does D&D VTT work and stuff. And I think that they bought it pretty much as like damage control. And then their plan is to basically use some of that software, use that, the experience of the teams and whatnot to build their own, like, fully, what's the word, like proprietary virtual tabletop system, like we're seeing with 1D&D pretty much.
Right.
To build like their own homegrown, like proprietary VTT system. And then once it's done and it's ready and they can actually release it and more importantly monetize it, I think that they're just going to axe D&D Beyond, or at least neuter it to where it's functionally kind of dead. But yeah,
which would suck. D&D Beyond is fucking great, I think.
Since that like clearly isn't like ready yet and that hasn't happened, for now D&D Beyond is their it is their virtual tabletop like tool. And the leak that mentioned how they were watching D&D Beyond subscriptions, basically it said that like they pay attention to the D&D Beyond subscription because it's their most immediate. It's basically their most immediate indicator of how like sales are going, because like sales.
There's no way else to tell the sales, right? Basically, it's because it's the only way to do sales.
Yeah, it's the most immediate information that they have, pretty much. Because things like sales of books and like gathering public opinion takes a lot of time. Whereas D&D Beyond subscriptions, they can check that right now. So it's pretty much that like they have instant access to those numbers and they can instantly see kind of how those numbers are doing. In this video discussing like the insider leaks, there seemed to be a lot of talk from the higher ups about pretty much destroying competition in the virtual space. Things like VTTs, things like D&D Beyond, things like online, rules resources. And that is a very like uncomfortable thing.
Yeah. It's also very dangerous.
Well, it's also really stupid. They can't. Like, it's one of those things where it's Hasbro doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they don't
It
Like,
feels like an ego trip, honestly.
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like you think about it, it's everything you said. It sounds really really bad, and then you think about it for 5 seconds and realize if they wouldn't even attempt, like the minute they start, they just there's a whiff that D&D Beyond subscriptions might go up to like 60, and people already fucking just hate it, just started leaving. You know, I think that was the biggest like push for the D&D subscription like exodus was when people realize I think they're gonna just push up the subscription and do all this bullshit, so just leave. And it just shows it's like the minute Hasbro actually does something to enforce anything that they want to do, people are just gonna leave. There's the fucking whatever system Pathfinder uses right over there. There's fucking I have heard more people start talking about GURPS now thanks to this fucking thing than I've had in the past like 20 years.
And here's something I don't think any of them really have thought about at all.
And they probably haven't.
Back to older editions.
Yeah.
We don't need new. We can keep using what we have. Like,
And
yeah, like I don't intend on stopping. I don't intend on like not or stopping playing D&D or like 5th edition in general. It's just anything moving forward is going to be you're going to have to sell me hard on it, man. And also like maybe I don't know, put out something saying that the old OGL can't be retract.
Yeah.
A lot of people there's been a lot of speculation at that, and that's particularly interesting because what was it? A lot of people. I can't. God damn it! I wish I'd researched this more. I didn't know we were going to talk about this. Damn it! Do you know about the guys who helped make the original OGL are pushing together? In case anything kind of happens for like a sort of counter lawsuit kind of thing against Hasbro in case they try to go against the old OGL. I remember hearing.
I thought I'd heard something about that, but I don't know anything more on it.
There has been a lot of like, for example, Paizo and Cobalt Press.
Yeah, I saw something from Paizo where they were like,
we were there when you wrote the old magic.
Yeah, they basically
no, they're not even that. They were the ones who helped. Everyone who's responsible for the other jails at Paizo now. So it's one of those things where it's like you will not be able to Hasbro will not be able to go back and say everything that the old OGL did is stuff will be forfeit. Like when that came out, about everyone I know who even knows a little bit of legalese went, they can't do that. Like, you won't be able to enforce that.
But see, they think that enough Paizo, money means they can get around that.
I have heard that Paizo has pretty much stated that, like, if they have to, they will, like, bring lawyers to court. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that floating around.
That is what I heard too. Yeah,
and I think that they could definitely win that case.
Within the next year, you are going to see at least one, probably more, D&D Beyond alternatives. Probably something definitely sponsored by Paizo are going to start popping up.
I'm gonna give a little bit of a hot take here. I have a feeling we may see a tabletop renaissance because of this.
I think it's possible.
Yeah, it is. I mean, with Orc being a thing and all these indie companies, just sort of because I feel like they're gonna start publishing their content under Orc, and then you're just gonna see a lot of new systems, new games, in all sorts of genres too.
And I hope D&D bounces back from I want D&D to succeed.
Yeah, I don't want D&D to die.
Yeah, it's the OG. It's the one that,
I absolutely do think that people branching out and being encouraged to explore other systems because of this will be better for tabletop games as a whole.
We've even talked about branching out to do different games because of this.
Stuff like Cyberpunk, Vampire the Masquerade, Monster of the Week, stuff like that. Pathfinder, Starfinder.
One of the things about this is I think a lot of this push is coming from Hasbro, who has Hasbro is sort of looking to amplify the profitability of their brand, and because for the last several years Hasbro itself hasn't been doing all that hot.
The
Hasbro
action figure
owns-
market is lucrative, but it's tiny.
Yeah. And
No, it's not that. Hasbro has, oh my god, it's one of those things with because I'm both a Transformer and a My Little Pony band. I've been following Hasbro for 15 years now, and it's this abundantly clear thing where the marketing team at Hasbro has no idea what the fuck they're doing,
Yeah.
and anytime they have a good thing, they immediately want to do everything they can to run it into the ground.
So I think a lot of this push is coming from Hasbro, but I think also suits at Wizards. The D&D team has always been stellar. Wizards of the Coast,
Right.
not.
Yeah, right.
Not.
I mean, just take a look at what they did to Magic the Gathering over the last year or two.
So,
Oof.
it's important to remember, the people who design D&D and who run social media accounts at Wizards and whatnot, they are not the enemy here. Do not send Jeremy Crawford hate mail. You are not achieving anything. That's not praxis. I know that's, I know someone on TikTok told you that that's praxis. It's not.
Yeah, no.
Always
Crawford
blame the
and,
corpo suits, not the actual human beings.
Crawford and Perkins aren't to blame here. It's the people in the fucking boardroom.
The insider leaks have repeatedly stressed the fact that Jeremy Crawford's name comes up a lot. Always in the context of Jeremy Crawford loves this game and does his best for the team and for the fans, and for the game itself.
He's the one voice we have in there right now.
Former Wizards employees also, just not even people associated with the leaks, have said the D&D design team is a fucking joy to be around just all the time.
And a lot of the digital team has said that they are not able to even communicate with the design team. They are specifically instructed not to. You can imagine why. So
if you get mad at people, get mad at corporate and get mad at PR. Anyone who works on PR
like Chris Kao, Chris Cox.
A lot of Chris's. There's too many
Cynthia
Chris's.
Williams. The Curse of the Chris's. New D&D module. We do Curse of Strahd, but instead of Castle Ravenloft, it's WotC headquarters.
The only Chris that's safe is Chris Perkins.
Yeah. And
I think we might get in trouble for being a little too on the nose here.
He'll be Sergey in that Sergey in that version of the module will be Chris Perkins.
For legal reasons, this is a joke.
Of course. Yeah. Something I thought was interesting in the insider leaked videos, or the insider leaks video on D&D Shorts is there were a lot of descriptions of what this Wizards proprietary virtual tabletop was going to be like. Remember that quote from our good friend Cynthia about D&D being undermonetized, compared to the way we see in video games with recurring spending, aka microtransactions? This was supposed to be the system that would have the subscription services up to $30 a month. And then you were going to be able to buy, guess what? Cosmetics, attack animations, spell animations, ability animations, different outfits and effects for your character. Because remember, this was a virtual tabletop. It was basically D&D as a video game. I mean, just look at the videos for one D&D itself. You can kind of see how you could microtransact the fuck out of this.
Also, I should say, just attached to the description of this episode will be a link to the draft version of OGL 1.2 if anybody is curious and wants to read it.
Yes.
It's hilarious because all the pages have a watermark that just says draft.
Yeah, they wanted to stress it this time. It's a draft this time, guys. hearing these leaks about the the Wizards of the Coast tabletop virtual tabletop program about cosmetics and animations and subscriptions, it's disappointing and it's unfortunate, but it's not at all surprising.
Yeah.
It's like you just gotta look at like the. It's easy to see like what they want to be.
Yeah, it's really not that surprising.
Look at and go look up any Transformers story and see how they've been trying to nickel and dime every single last bit of like Diaclone shit.
And the thing is, this like the one D&D like virtual tabletop system. When I first saw it, like when they put out trailers for it, I was really excited, and I would have been excited for this system minus the microtransactions and subscriptions. I would love a D&D virtual tabletop system where I can like pick like animations for my abilities and my spells and attacks and stuff, and I like that would be so cool. And this could have been such a cool like system, and it would have succeeded just on its features, like having animations and like customization. Like on its own it could have succeeded just by being a really cool idea, but they really really shot it in the foot.
Well, I don't know how long you'll have to wait, but I suspect you will get something like that now.
Oh yeah.
Because I am.
Well, that was the plan for one D&D.
Well, no, it's like now that they, like you said, that now they practically shot themselves in the foot. I have no doubt. Intrepid young fucking users. I have a feeling that pretty soon on Steam, same way you have like the virtual tabletop. I forgot what it's called. You are going to find like people are going to stop popping that stuff out, man-made now. If anything, in order just to spite you.
I've seen there's one on Steam. I actually have it, but I can't remember what it's called. That is kind of very similar to the one D&D system, where it's like a virtual tabletop where you can like place down minis, build sets, and you can move them around. And you can roll.
I think I know what you're talking about. I can't.
It's literally called, I think, like
Tailspire.
Yep, I have it. It's really cool. It's still like there's still a lot to be done. I think they're still adding a lot of features.
It's still in early access, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that was a big inspiration for like. Just like how they want to sort of corner D&D Beyond's market, I think they also want to corner the market on these, really interesting, really well-designed virtual tabletops. So
yeah, they used Tailspire for the Starstruck season of Dimension 20. Also, hi everyone.
Also, hi.
Welcome.
I came upstairs and I'm laying down because I'm not feeling very well, but I also wanted to talk about something because I'm angry. I'm very angry.
Well, hi, Angry. I'm Jake.
Hi, Jake. So I agree with you on the one D&D stuff. The OGL stuff is really stupid. One D&D had some good ideas and also some bad ideas, but fuck all of it now because it's all nonsense and bad, and I'm not going to play any of it. Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. I think the whole thing's ridiculous.
And just as a quick little thing, I'm looking at Tailspire's Steam page. One, I urge anyone who can spare it to support the Tailspire project. It's really cool.
$25. You really can't beat that.
Very positive reception. Yeah, it's $25, and
it looks beautiful.
I haven't opened it in months, so I don't know if there's a subscription service or like microtransactions. There might be. I don't know. But what I want to highlight, the name of the developer, studio, is Bouncy Rock Entertainment, and that deserves an award. I love that name so much. Since the gang is all here, I guess do we want to consider?
Yes, I do. Okay, so
what are we talking about? I was not planning on being here very long. I had one thing to talk about, then I was going to peace out to go to bed, but I figured I would just storm the castle real quick and say my piece and leave.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about something.
I just it's something I want to say real quick because it's I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan. I'm a part of the Kingdom Hearts community.
Yeah, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan too.
Yeah,
no
but
judgment here.
I'm a recovering Kingdom Hearts fan.
I've been trying to tell every single goddamn other fan they need to stop. They won't. It's gonna suck. There's a new Kingdom Hearts game that announced like a year or two ago. It's called Kingdom Hearts Missing Link. It was a really interesting game that looked like it was going to be like kind of like a sequel to or at least like a sequel to the Union Cross, but like actually action based. So rather than using your medals and cards to like do attacks, your character would actually have your combos tied into it. It looked really cool. And they've been releasing a lot more information on it, and it looks interesting. And I want to tell every single Kingdom Hearts fan out there to stop being excited about it because it's just going to get fucking canceled in like a fucking year.
Well, the prototype test just started.
Yeah, and it's like cool. They just got done canceling the third live service game. And this one was like, so it's like, nah, they couldn't keep Last Soldier alive.
Oh, is that the Final Fantasy VII Battle Royal?
Yeah, and that was a Final Fantasy VII game, and they were like, nope, a year. Event like Chocobo GP was barely a year, and they given up on that, and then just now like
Chocobo GP is a garbage game, so
no, it's actually not. That's the problem. It's really fucking fun, but riddled with microtransactions and pay to win stuff, which is what killed it. And now, of course, Avengers shutting down, and it at least has the distinction of they didn't outright lie. They have in fact supported Avengers for multiple years, two solid years. So at least it wasn't a complete lie when they said they'd support it for years to come. It is a lie with everything else. So it's like I wish I could like it, but the fact it's like don't care about this game. There is nothing that they have done to show that this game will live longer than a couple of months, if a year at least.
General feelers from the group on perhaps maybe starting whatever our next storyline is.
A Kingdom Hearts game. Got it.
I'm Donald Duck.
I have a system. I have a system.
Yeah.
A really fun one. Don't fucking tempt me.
What's the name of it again?
I can't remember. I think it's something Hearts. It has an Arts acronym.
Isn't there also a Final Fantasy
XIV
TTRPG?
Probably.
Yeah, there is, but like the one I'm talking about for Kingdom Hearts specifically is like it is so specific to Kingdom Hearts that it's one of those where it's like it is really unique. It's
I'll look at it.
It's not even like combat. It's not even like real combat. It's like because it's just like no, it's
Interstitial is what it's called. Interstitial Hearts Intertwined. It's a very good game. It's awesome. But what were you thinking?
Oh, I was just gonna say or put out feelers on how the gang was feeling about once we wrap up our our Eberron shenanigans with perhaps starting our next storyline, whatever our next arc may be, with a system such as Pathfinder 2e or any of the various fantasy TTRPG systems out there.
Or we could even branch out from fantasy and do like Cyberpunk, Vampire, Starfinder, even
Shadowrun.
Shadowrun keeps getting tossed around at me, and I'm like, I'm scared of all the D6s I'll need.
At some point, I really want to play in a Blades in the Dark game. That game is awesome. You basically play as a group of thieves, and you do missions and jobs, and you have your own base, and it's got like a base building mechanic kind of to it.
Oh, it's published by the same people who publish Monster of the Week.
Yes.
Does it use the same system?
It's a similar system, but you don't plan it in it. The only thing you plan is when you do a mission, you choose what type of mission you want to do, and then you choose your point of ingress into the mission, and like you just pick how you get in, and then basically how it works is you have stress that you can take to, like, let's say there's a door that's locked and you have to get through the door. You can say that you take a certain number of stress to have a flashback to where you bribed a guard to keep that door unlocked. So you don't plan shit out ahead of time. You actually, like, you can do it as you go through the game. It's a lot of
bullshitted through.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Also, from what I'm reading, there's a Creative Commons licensed system reference document that allows people to use the Forge in the Dark game for other games.
Yeah. Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. It's a great system, and I've never gotten a chance to play it, but I always wanted to.
I really like the idea of sort of doing like occasional sort of either like one-offs or like mini-series of other systems. It's something I mean I've been mentioning it to do it with like Cyberpunk or Starfinder for some time now as well.
Yeah.
Like, here's an idea with the one you just mentioned. Like, say we have to do a heist in the Eberron game. Why couldn't we just do an episode using that?
Oh, switch systems for an episode.
You could do that. Absolutely. I'm a prime advocate for that.
Like,
that's a very friends at the table thing.
It's a using a different system to further along the same story. I think that could be an interesting way to branch out without really having to wait until we're, done with this one. If there's some we can use as like some of these, like they're the one-shot tabletops where they're only supposed to be
the one-page RPGs.
Yeah.
Like Crash Pandas or Honey Heist.
I have one of those that I made. It's called Feels Familiar.
I feel like we could get a lot of mileage out of doing some of those as like you said, like during this main story, and then we have something within that we have to do that we can use the one page.
We trace Horny Boys it up. It's like what they do with their live shows, where it's like basically them using almost like this is one-shot systems or like things, and it's like only instead of like it being like you make up your characters, like here's just fucking Sonya and Vareth and shit.
Yeah,
and we do one right,
Like, let's run a military political intrigue campaign where we play the game, in a D20 tabletop RPG system, and then we resolve battles with Warhammer system, and then we resolve grand strategic campaigns with Risk.
No.
Yeah. With Risk.
You want to get dumb? We do the military one, but battles are fucking Robotech. You want to get dumb? Let's get dumb.
But also, that game has to be a thinly veiled pastiche of Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, of course.
I demand to use whatever system has us use more D12s.
And
more D12s is never a bad thing.
More D12s.
Yeah, D12 doesn't get enough love.
Exactly.
I'm a big advocate of mixing in some other RPGs for like one shots or for like scenarios within our existing main game.
Yeah.
And my vote personally, if we do decide to switch the system for our main game, I think that for us, we all have D&D in common. That's the tabletop RPG that we all have in common with each other. I think my vote personally would be towards perhaps Pathfinder, like probably Pathfinder 2e, just because it's the Pathfinder
The
right
thing
now.
right now. Yeah.
Right.
And Pathfinder like 1e, it has kind of the Warhammer effect where you look at it and you're like, Jesus Christ, there's so much there.
Yeah. There's a lot to
Whereas
that
So
game.
much
Pathfinder 2
math.
is still rapidly expanding, but Pathfinder 2e is still newer, so it's not as like daunting
It's
to
not
kind
as
of jump
crazy.
into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As long as I don't have to DM it. I already DM one Pathfinder 2 game, or I'm about to do it again, and it's a daunting task.
Well, if Matt wants to stay as our regular DM and wants to DM Pathfinder in a regular game, we could do that. And I would be interested in, since it would probably be a while before we could get to that, I would be interested in doing, like, I could DM a sort of Pathfinder mini arc sometime between now and then.
I am fully in support of giving up the DM chair for a bit. Not that I hate it. I love being the DM, but sometimes it's like, man, do I just want to be a little goblin that fucks shit up?
Right, I get you.
So yeah, I'd be willing to, invest in some Pathfinder resources and craft up some sort of short, concise Pathfinder, story that we can play in. That way, we can all get used to it in a form factor that is not a big campaign, sprawling epic story.
Yeah.
I can
and
also
then when we go into our big epic campaign story in Pathfinder, we'll all be a bit more familiar.
Sure. Not like a plan to me.
Potential audience viewers who haven't seen Pathfinder before will have gotten some taste of it, with our unique flavor of bad cooking.
I can also vouch heavily for Jake as a dungeon master. He's been my dungeon master for over 10 years at this point.
Look, just based on how he plays his characters, if he's even half as good as a DM, like, it'll be entertaining as fuck.
And if you need a break, I don't mind. As much as I protest playing DMing Pathfinder, I don't mind running a session or two. It's not that bad.
Yeah, I'd like to try DMing.
Yeah,
Pathfinder 2 is rough. I mean, it's a lot crunchier of a system for one. There's a lot more numbers that have to be adjusted.
Am I the only one that has no interest in DMing?
Well,
just as I was going to say, I think everybody's going to get a chance to be the DM, except for Jace.
Yeah, it's not, I've done it. I can do it if I absolutely am needed to. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things that's like, when I don't know if I'm a good or a bad DM, because I DM'd like one game, and in that game, I realized I was in charge. So when it came down to like numbers and stuff, I was like, I could just change this number if I want. I can just change this number, and I did. I like,
I do that in so many of our combat encounters. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like kind of high. I'm gonna make these challenges a bit harder to hit now because it's like I had. I also did it's like I had like a little book that had the basic idea of what I wanted, and then as they were doing it, I just kind of like rolled with it. Let's see where we go. Okay, yeah, they're hitting really hard. This thing, they're rolling really high. I'm gonna get bored of this. It's also fun to just be like, you know what? No, it doesn't. Whatever you just said, no, it doesn't. Because I can say that. I'm in charge. I can just say, no, it doesn't.
Some would reject this truth, but I think that is the mark of a good DM.
Agreed.
Recognizing, sometimes you will see that your encounter is not hard enough. Sometimes you will see that it is too hard. And other times you will be able to tell that your campaign right now needs that element of randomness and the hands of fate to give it some sense of like actions have consequences and things could go wrong. There's, I don't think that there is Some people are like everything should be controlled and scripted, or some people are like nothing should be controlled or scripted.
Yeah, I know
I think
a
that
couple of people that are like hard against random encounters, and it's like, but like,
Have an outline, be willing to adapt.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
Like the way that I have planned campaigns for the last few years has always been I create the setting, I create the important people you'll meet, the important places you'll go, and I create, scenarios of different things that could happen, but I don't resolve, I don't predetermine any solutions for anything. I don't predetermine how or where things go. I'm like, this is where you are. These are the important people around you. This is what's going on. You tell me what you want to do. What do you want to do about the goblins in the hills? Oh, what's that? You have a mentor in your backstory who is an artificer that makes battle mechs. Okay. Like,
I'll run with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I say I'm not willing to put a percentage number to this, but a significant percentage of your campaign planning should revolve around your characters' like backstories.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed.
If somebody gives me a backstory that is like, I made a deal with fucking some witch of the bog one time, and I don't know what's gonna become of that. I'm gonna be like, great. You want to know who's working with the bad guy now?
Right.
It's like, surprise, motherfucker.
Oh, your dad was an important like political figure. Cool.
He's
That's
prime
certainly-
target for being dead or something,
Or your exploits are now a scandal he has to deal with.
Oh, you
And
committed
you
a heinous act in your backstory? Bounty hunters pursuing you? Check. I definitely think that your characters, should influence, like their backstory should be significant to the world. Unless the point of their character is literally, I am a nobody from nowhere. I was a farmer. I killed a goblin. I was like, wow, that was really easy. So I killed more goblins and people paid me for it.
Right.
If that is the character they are going with, then fucking right on. Good for them. But even that sets up like what happens when that character like unexpectedly becomes the center of attention, where people are like, yeah, this fucking like cool ass hero is saving people by killing goblins that have been like rampaging the villages.
What happens when the group of orcs now moves into the territory the goblins were cleared out?
What happens when the goblins swear a blood debt?
Right.
What happens when the economy of this entire region becomes codependent upon goblin killing, and then some asshole killed all the goblins?
Exactly.
Whoops.
Characters should have impact on the setting.
So it sounds like we're pretty set on like we're going to move to Pathfinder 2 at some point with the way the conversation's going.
I'm 100% in favor of it, but I'm not going to complain if we don't.
I'm going to be honest. I like 5e more than I do Pathfinder 2. I've played a campaign since the game literally came out. Like the day the book came out, we made characters. And we've gone from first level to I think we're 17th now over the last 2-3 years, I think. And I like it. It's got a lot of really good pros, but the con, like I like 5e's ease a bit more. It's
The streamlining?
easier.
Oh,
Yeah.
5e is very streamlined and very
5e is my
easy to
favorite
play, easy to run.
TTRPG system to date. And I say this as somebody like I started learning on 2nd edition AD&D.
Oh yeah, I remember those days, man.
And
you're bringing back
loved
memories.
it.
If you decide that you want to play a wizard, talk to me about the alternative spellcasting rules, because the default spellcasting for wizards in PF2 sucks real bad.
Jake, you know it'd be
Yeah,
funny
huh?
if we did a second edition AD&D one shot.
Honestly, I would be so down. I have all of the books in
Oh,
my room
God.
right now.
I've never run it. I've never played it.
I'm so
Oh,
ready.
oh my god!
I'm so ready for the
No.
math of Thaco.
No. See,
Oh.
no. See, like you guys are like, haha, that'd be funny, and I'm telling you right now, I'm not gonna play that. I refuse. I barely wrap my head around D&D. I don't want. I would not. I can't.
I
No.
grew up on it. I learned on it, and as much as the nostalgia would hit to play it in that system
It
again,
is kind of miserable.
You
Yeah.
would get 30 seconds. You would get like 10 minutes.
to now.
You'd get like 10 minutes in, and then realize, oh,
God,
PF2, Pathfinder 2 is a nice, comfy middle ground between 3rd edition and 5th edition.
That's been my impression of it. I expect that I'm still gonna like 5th edition the most in general.
Yeah.
But like to me, it's like I'm okay with that. Because like I still want to play Pathfinder because like I want to branch out. I've played Pathfinder 1st edition and I had fun with it. You know, it's like for me, like it doesn't have to be my favorite system for me to still want to play it. And you know, and the other thing is like once we're done with that Pathfinder main game, whatever that campaign shapes up to be,
Yeah.
you know, once we're done with that one, we could always just come back to 5th edition, especially if the situation around D&D and Wizards changes by that point, which, I mean, for how long campaigns go, it fucking should. That's such a long time.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
only problem with doing that is if by that point is when we return to the main campaign and then having to translate all of that into a new system.
I'm sure it'll be fun.
Well,
no,
we only have the going back to kill Strahd again arc in the main game. And then after that the main game will take a new form.
Yeah.
Well, I know we talked about maybe doing another arc before Strahd, but if we want to just go back, do Strahd, and cap it off, should
think
we
that's
still be
really the only
recording at this
thing
point?
left, like
I'm leaving it in.
Okay, I'm
I
just saying
think
because like we're talking like behind the scenes plans now, so I was just wondering.
Yeah.
I think that's really all that's left is for us to sort of like go out with a flourish going back to Ravenloft or the Mists.
Well, I mean, we do have the
And then we could always
unresolved thing with Jack now.
Well, we can always do a one shot for Jack later.
Although
I have a
I'm not
sneaking
going to say
suspicion.
anything because I don't want, in case we end up using the idea,
I have a
remind me
sneaking
after we stop
suspicion.
recording and I'll bring it back up.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, the going back to Rayoff and Sean thing would be like a nice little count. That was their first thing, but also it's like Jack has set like Jack's finished his story seemingly, right? At least the way us three have set up our characters. I feel like there's something Ilfel could do, but fucking Beth and Sonia have like nothing in the way of like
Barrett still hasn't died.
Story. Yeah, like we don't. Both of us have like nothing in the way of like a story that we're like pushing towards, seemingly, right? At least not one that we've put any like real like time into, you know. So it's like when it's like
what we've got left is pretty much like the end of it.
Like tying up everybody's personal story and then the whole campaign.
I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying like I don't think like Jack did because it's Jack, but I feel like with everyone else, it's less we've got personal stories to tell up, and it feels more like we managed to create characters who are perfect episodic characters, where it's just like, here's this shenanigans we're getting into this week.
I get you. I get what you're saying now.
You know?
Yeah.
I kind of look at it as with what we know about Ravenloft, without getting into spoilers, with what we have learned about our good buddy Strahd. I think that I kind of envisioned the next part of that game as basically like part 2 of It.
Yeah.
By that I mean It by Stephen King.
Yeah.
I think that that's kind of where our story's going, and then I think I have a sneaking suspicion that when we go back, I think a lot of things are going to get resolved for better or worse.
I have a feeling not all of us come back from that one.
I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
I think that Ravenloft
I know you are, you son of a bitch.
I think that Ravenloft will answer a lot of our questions one way or the other, and I think we'll make it very clear where these characters go.
It's like at this point, I am getting antsy to get back to that one.
I am willing to perhaps integrate these characters into the greater mythos of our version of like whatever setting we play in Pathfinder. Like maybe they fucking come out of the mists into, you know, whatever setting.
Before
we
you
play
go any further on
in.
that kind of ties into the idea I have later.
Gotcha.
So
maybe it's just because every time a son you have tried to do something, anything, it's just immediately kind of fallen. Like any type of character thing with something, immediately just kind of end up falling to the wayside. I feel like it's fucking whatever. This is episode 2. This is episode 3. Fucking what Full House bullshit do I have to do today?
I do get what you're saying, and I think one element of it is like that campaign was all of our first time playing a campaign together as this specific group. And so I think that we have since, I mean, I would hope in the years since we started that we have learned like more about how to play around each other.
Yeah,
and I think
play
that
off each other, and
I think that by the time we got to a point where like we know who our characters are now and we understand them better, like Ilfeladil's Bladesinger thing, I came up with that so late in the game. So I think that we understood our characters. We finally came to understand our characters and how the group operates, like pretty late into the game. Whereas I think if we started that campaign now, after having played together for years, I think from the very beginning, from episode 1, I think we would, be setting up and foreshadowing these things that we've been wanting to get to. So I do think, well, for one, I agree with you that there is, I think that the sort of intergroup dynamics, I don't know what the word is, I don't know what phrase I'm trying to use, but like, I think that we learned very late in the game how we want to play around each other and who our characters are. And I think that, like, I mean, just look at our group now in this Eberron adventure.
Contrast the main game to the Eberron campaign. We know what our characters are. We know who we want them to be. We have the idea of where we want them to go this time. And we know how to play off of that with each other now. The main campaign, we didn't get that till 2/3 of the way through.
First episode with these Eberron characters, and we all so early on, like the first scene that our characters showed up, we all were just injecting so much character into them from the get-go.
Did a goddamn anime opening.
And like pretty much immediately we start having pairing off different characters to like test out what they're like together. And like I think last episode somebody made the joke about like everybody gets an episode with Clash.
Yes.
Everybody gets some random misadventure with Clash. And so I think that that's something that now that we have the experience with each other, because like that was our first campaign playing as this specific group. Like when we started this campaign, Matt was also running a Curse of Strahd game with some of our local friends. Matt, you might remember. Well, I mean, obviously you remember that game, and you remember my character for that one was the Hexblade Warlock Cursival.
Yeah.
who was like he was like a corrupted Arthurian knight type character. It was so cool. So both games were happening around the same time, or like starting in a similar time frame. And I had these two character ideas of Ilfeladel, a elven necromancer, and Cursival, my like corrupted Arthurian knight hexblade. And I was like, I don't know which one I want to play. And all I had to go on basically was the people we were playing with in person. I knew them. They were, like one of them is somebody that me and Matt have known since like 8th grade, 9th grade.
Something like that. Yeah. Forever.
And then I didn't know any of you guys when we started. And so I was like, well, I know the wizard will be like, I can do funny stuff with him. I can make him entertaining. And I was like, the Hexblade one is going to be a little bit more difficult. Like, I don't know, like how well I'll mesh with the group.
It was a much more serious character.
I don't know how well I'm going to get along with everybody. I don't know what the tone of the campaign is going to be like. So I was like, I'll play the wizard in this podcast game because I know the wizard will be fun. And if the campaign is really dark, I can play that character really dark. If the campaign's really silly, I can play that character really silly, which I kind of did.
All I'm going to point out is that the group's internal name is the Ghouligans. So I think you made the right choice.
But like, to be honest, looking back, I have wished several times that I had played Cursival for the for this game instead, because I want so badly I want to play out interactions between Cursival and all of your characters, and because I think they would have been so cool. I think Cursival's interactions with Jack would have been so like they would have been the edgy anime duo.
They really would have been, dude. Holy shit.
I think Cursival and Vareth would have found a bond in sort of like knightly ideal, because like Cursival sees himself as a knight, even though he's a Hexblade warlock. He serves a fucking dark evil. He sees himself as a knightly, like, as a figure of knightly ideals.
You're like a Lord Soth.
Pretty much, yeah. I think he would have found a bond with Vareth, though I think they would have clashed early on. I think that he would have found like a brotherly bond with Vareth. And then Sonya, Sonya just, like, who doesn't have great interactions with Sonya? Like, I don't think it's impossible. I don't think it's possible.
It's weird. I don't know if I'm gonna. I don't know how I'm gonna go back to, because I've been having to play a character like, because Sonya's very much like, I tried when, right, you were there, you all were there, right, at the beginning. I tried playing like a real person character. Like, I tried playing a real person character. Sonya was supposed to have ideas and beliefs, and then at some point, and I don't know when, it just became like, fuck it. She's literally pure id, just fucking whatever thought jumbles around in that brain has to come out and immediately be set to like natural. And having to play a character, and now like playing like a real person character who's like an actual human being, it's like, man, I don't know if I'm able to go to that, because there's plenty of times where I have stupid ideas as like ours, but like I'll be like, no, ours is smart. He's not going to do something ridiculous unless he thinks it's going to work.
Here's the thing about that with Sonya, though. Sonya is a monk. How is the person that is pure id have the discipline to be a monk? And that's what makes Sonya an interesting character.
Yeah, man. It's because she's pure id that she's such a good monk. She has none of those fucking earthly ties.
And I think that's water. Something that would have been so fun between Cursival and Sonya, because Cursival was also very impulsive because of his own like sort of like ideals and his own version of like chivalry in his head. Like, I'm trying to remember that campaign. We didn't go super far in it from what I remember.
Right.
I don't remember how far we got, but like Wasn't Cursival stuck in Ravenloft alone, like in Castle Ravenloft? Like,
yeah, at one point, Cursival got stuck in Castle Ravenloft.
like I escaped somehow.
Jesus Christ.
You escaped via
a flying creature, wasn't it?
Befriending werefolk, basically.
I think I literally stripped off all my armor and gear to make myself light as possible, so that I think it was a were-raven
could carry you out.
like Cursival is very impulsive. I think that he like openly spoke against Strahd to his face at some point.
Yep.
And when he made it back to the group, he was like, "All right, gather the fucking troops because we're gonna go knock on Strahd's door." Like,
well, I mean, we're talking
terrible idea.
We're talking about how Sonya is like the impulsive one, but Varith's the one that punched Asmodeus, and I don't know how you get much more impulsive than that. Like,
so I
did you just try to punch out Cthulhu?
Oh man.
All I know is I think y'all are gonna like my new character. I have been working for a minute on her. I've been talking to Matt about her. And
about Loveless?
No, the new character after Jack. The whole reason I've hopped in here was to talk about the stupid bullshit that I've been playing. So, Jace knows this story because we've been talking about it for the last couple of days.
God. Oh god!
I've been playing Pillars of Eternity.
The first one.
Yes, and I want to ask you all a question. I'm going to give you a hypothetical situation, then tell you what your ultimate, and then ask you what your ultimate conclusion.
I feel like I know where this is going.
You might also know where it's going to. I think I talked to you about it a little bit. So, imagine that you're the Unabomber.
Oh god!
Okay? So just
it's a hell of a sentence.
So you're the Unabomber. Stay with me now. You're the Unabomber, and you blew up a god for a god. Like, they gave you the power to blow up a god. Okay, you and like 12 other people, or like 11 other people, and then your god, who you worship, who you are a cleric of, who you gain power from. Once you and all of your 11 all of the other 11 people who helped you dead, wants to kill you. So, what would you do in that case? Would you? My biggest thing is, I don't think I could worship that person anymore. Like,
so what you're saying is, he gave you a gun, and said, "Go shoot that person," and then you did, and then he goes, "And now that you shot that person, I no longer have need of you." And you're saying, "So what do I do with this gun in my hand?"
Right.
No, because the gun now no longer works and has left you impotent.
Okay, he didn't say that.
And
he did not say that the powers are gone. I was about to say...
No, the idea was that the gun was supposed to kill you, and then it didn't.
See, I thought you were going to... See, you didn't say that. So my thought was like, well, you used your Unabomber powers to, like, kill that one god. Just kill this one. He's already giving you the tools needed to do it.
No, the bomb was supposed to kill the other god and the 12 of you, but for some reason you survived.
The goddess gives the Unabomber a nuke to kill Jesus with.
That is a hell of a way to put it.
It's one of those things where it really feels like you are... You know what? I would think you are the chosen one, because you have been able to, one, kill a god, and two, not get killed by a god. So, like, to me, I'm like...
to all of you would be, would you continue to worship the god that wants you dead?
No.
You gotta kill him now.
Yeah.
Great. So,
attack and dethrone god.
Because Durant, so the character is named Durance, right? And his entire final, and this is the end of the quest. There's nothing left except the final like storyboard at the end of the game to tell you what happens to him when the game ends. Right, and I haven't got there, so I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen. But the end of the quest, he goes, "Cool, I'm gonna worship her harder. That'll show her."
No, God. So what you're saying is that the only end of this quest is a fucking Animal House style fucking like
I
2
believe
sentence war at the end?
I believe his plan is to worship her so hard that he takes all of her powers. Because that'll show her. Durance, you thick bitch.
Well, you know what?
Hold on. Based on the setting and things I know about it that you haven't got to yet, and in the second game, that isn't as futile a plan as you think.
I was going to say,
really stupid from where I'm at right now.
well, it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, but I'd also like to point out that, like, from your point of view, it's like he was given a nuke and he thought he would survive. Meanwhile, if someone were to say, "Here's this nuke, use it to kill someone," you'd probably go, "No, because it's just gonna kill me," right?
Yeah, you're not Durance, the idiot.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, but here's the thing. It didn't kill him. So it sounds like Durance knows a little bit more than you do. I don't think I could have survived.
He got lucky?
That's the thing. He doesn't.
No, he really doesn't. I've been talking to him.
No, you know what it is? He's stupid like a fox. That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like he's the only one who gets it.
So I told
an argument for him being crazy or stupid like a fox.
I told Jace and Matt, my current party consists of me, who is slowly losing their mind. It consists of a really nice boy who is sad about his brother and loves dogs, which is great.
A deer.
A deer is great. It consists of a really haughty elf and his split personality, who is like a 17-year-old girl, but like a 17-year-old fantasy Celtic girl who will kick your ass.
No, she's not 17. She's supposed to be an older, like, middle-aged woman.
She comes off as being like really young and immature, which is really funny.
No, think more crude peasant.
Fair. And then you have the really nice, hardworking woman who made a really bad mistake and fucked up real bad.
Yeah.
And then you have the fucking Unabomber, who is also your healer.
The fact that he's also the healer is what gets it for me.
Yeah, it's great. That game is great. Play that game. I got to get the DLC probably this week to finish it out, and then I'm gonna play 2, where you get to be a pirate, and that's literally the only thing about that game I know. And I think Adair is in it. That's literally all I know.
Matt, I want you to play Dragon Age 2 and pay close attention to Anders.
Don't tell me anything about who's in it. I don't want to know. I'm trying to keep myself free of spoiling.
Adair is like literally right in the first little bit. Like he's right there. That's not spoiling anything.
Right. So I'm excited. That game is great. I've never been able to get this hard into a CRPG. I played a bit of Baldur's Gate 3, and I played a bit of Planescape Torment, but I didn't really get into Torment. I got pretty far. I got about halfway into Torment and didn't really like it as much. But Pillars 1 is really, really good. So, anyway, that's all I got. Don't trust the Unabomber, kids. He bad.
Yeah, don't. Anyway, wow, this one went pretty long, huh? That's rare for an After Dark. Not complaining.
I think we had a fat, juicy girth of content.
Yeah, we do.
Content. I'm sorry, I just didn't feel like playing tonight, and then I couldn't sleep. So
that's okay.
That's how it goes.
No worries. Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit of a weird sort of add-on to the episode, because as I was editing it earlier today, D&D Beyond posted a new statement about the OGL and the future of the OGL 1.1, 1.2, whatever the fuck they decided to call it. Basically, the gist of it is there's 3 major bullet points for this. Is that they're going to leave the OGL 1.0 in place as it is, untouched. They're also going to make the entire SRD, that's the system reference document that you use whenever you're going to publish something under 5th edition rules. They're going to make that the entire SRD 5.1 available under a Creative Commons license. And the third bullet point here is that when you publish content under the OGL, you can choose to either publish it under the OGL or the Creative Commons license. Now this is huge because with the Creative Commons license, Wizards and Hasbro cannot change that whatsoever.
Big day for TTRPG fans.
Absolutely.
It's pretty rare to see, a multi-million, if not billion-dollar corporation actually taken to task and forced to change course due to pressure from regular people, like customers essentially. So on one hand, it is surprising that something was actually done and that they actually ceded defeat in such a dramatic fashion. On the other hand, it's also kind of not surprising just because this was so boneheaded and so dumb.
It really was.
I think that the community made it so very clear how disastrous this would be for Dungeons and Dragons, and by extension Wizards, and by extension Hasbro. It would be so disastrous for the brand, for the company, because had they continued on this course and had they not retracted enough, or worse, had they doubled down, this would have gone so badly for them because people would quit and people would not come back. Some people still aren't coming back because they just, I've seen people say that this is cool, but they're not coming back because they just don't trust Wizards or Hasbro anymore. And I say fair play to them. I will continue to enjoy 5th edition. I know you've said as much as well, Matt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the fact of the matter is this entire fiasco has severely damaged the trust that people have in Wizards and Hasbro. And it's going to take a very long time and a lot of effort to gain that trust back. And it certainly helps that big names in the community like Ginny D and Mark Holmes have been this is a great thing. Hearing everything that the OGL 1.0 will not be messed with, and also the SRD 5.1 is under Creative Commons. They've made it known that they think it's a positive change.
Yeah, it's really it's been
helps.
A great movement from the community in general. It's the D&D and just broader tabletop RPG community mobilized more effectively than some militaries could mobilize. Such a decentralized group of people and such a widely spread and the community for tabletop RPGs is very vast, very broad, very divided. There's a lot of different camps in TTRPGs, a lot of different, different games, different types of system, D20 systems, D6 systems, completely diceless systems, the different games within those systems, and then some, not every D&D player is even the same. There's different types of D&D or Pathfinder players. So it's such a fractured, divided, and spread out, and just diverse, not thinking in one way kind of community. But they just instantly, the whole community just instantly showed up in force and just, has succeeded in forcing this massive corporation to back down, and
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
If anyone ever tells you that taking a stand as a community accomplishes nothing, they're lying. It's bullshit.
Yeah. This is a good sign that it's there. Obviously, things can get pretty bleak, and when it comes to the relationship between like customers or consumers and like people like publishers and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
That relationship gets pretty bleak, especially in the spaces of tabletop RPGs and video games. But I think that this is a good example of how people who play games don't have to roll over and just take whatever they're given from publishers and developers. You really can, as a community, stand up and tell them like you have to change this or we are not going to support you, because these companies don't exist without their workers, who, let's not forget, the workers at Wizards were among, I won't say the most affected, because it's the people who publish the third party content. Those are the people who are obviously affected the most. But the regular, like, day in day out workers at Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, are living pretty miserable lives because of the greed of the companies that they work for. So like, it's important to remember that they were in this fight with us too. It was insiders at Wizards who were leaking a lot of the information that we had.
Exactly. Yeah.
And D&D Shorts said it best, that it was insiders at Wizards who gave us the fighting chance to even know that this was happening and then to be able to fight it. It's these companies, they don't exist without their workers, and they don't exist without, the people who buy their stuff. Wizards and Hasbro, they don't have a company if people don't work for them, and if people don't buy D&D books, Transformers toys, G.I. Joe toys.
Right, whatever it's under the Hasbro umbrella. All this to say, bullying corporations worked. We did it with Paramount in the original Sonic the Hedgehog design.
It works and is morally
it's morally correct.
Good. It is not morally ambiguous.
Yeah, right.
For once, you get a morally unambiguous resolution on this channel.
Also, they along with the statement, they published some stats from the OGL 1.2 survey that they put out just before we recorded the rest of this episode. I still don't know if I'm going to put this segment at the beginning or at the end, so you know what I mean. So more than 15,000 people filled out the survey, which I think is a pretty small number, but it's a pretty significant number as well. I don't know. Numbers are weird. So, turns out 88% of people did not want to publish role-playing content under OGL 1.2. 90% would have to change some aspect of their business to accommodate OGL 1.2. 89% were dissatisfied with deauthorizing the OGL 1.0. 86% were dissatisfied with the draft virtual tabletop policy. 62% were satisfied with including the SRD in the Creative Commons license. And the majority of those who were dissatisfied asked for more SRD content in the Creative Commons.
It's interesting that there were 11% of people who were okay with deauthorizing OGL 1.0. I wonder if they were thinking, I'm okay with deauthorizing 1.0 as long as the replacement is, acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wonder if that was their thought process. It's still 89%, against deauthorizing is still a massive number. But I wonder what those 11% of people, like, I wonder if I'm sure there's somebody somewhere who is like, no, it's actually a good thing to deauthorize 1.0, and Wizards deserves a cut of the content people make, and blah blah blah. Some bootlicker somewhere who
right.
who would suck on Jeff Bezos's toes if they could. But I 11% is an interesting number. I will, in good faith, give them the benefit of the doubt and say or assume that most of them were thinking, I'm okay with deauthorizing 1.0 if the replacement is acceptable.
Yeah, that's the mindset that I would like to go into, because that's 11% of 15,000 is 1,650, which is still pretty fucking. That's a big chunk of people.
It might not be a huge number on the full scale of things, but pack 1,100 people into a building, and that's a lot of people.
There's professional sports that can't fill a 15,000 seat stadium.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of fucking people.
So I guess what this means for the future, I think, is an interesting topic. Like I said, there's people who are not going to come back to D&D, and they are, I would say they're well within their rights not to.
Fair play to them.
I don't begrudge them that decision at all. I love 5th edition as a system. It combines a lot of things that I liked about 2nd edition with a lot of the modernization of like 3rd and I'm not going to say 4th, but like 3rd and Pathfinder. It combines, that classic 2nd edition AD&D kind of emphasis on like story and character and role playing elements, while having like the modernization of the newer editions and newer systems like Pathfinder. For now, I think 5th edition is still going to be my favorite.
Yeah, it's definitely mine. Every other system that I've tried, and even previous editions of D&D, I've generally liked, but I just always come back to 5th edition just because it's easy and I know it very well, like inside and out.
And it might seem like a weird answer to just say that it's easy, but when you think of actually playing a game, if you're going into a game with the desire to just play and just have a story and have like a fun time, there is something to be said about a system that stays out of your way for the most part, and that is easy to recollect information. The advantage-disadvantage system isn't perfect. Sometimes it lacks room for nuance, but at the same time, it helps the flow of the game so much when the DM doesn't have to think, is this a -2 modifier? Is this a -4 modifier or a -6? Like, the DM can just say, it is a disadvantage. There's something to be said about how quickly you can just figure something out under the guidelines of 5th edition. This doesn't have to turn into a full-length discussion on the pros and cons of 5th edition.
Right.
That can be its own separate podcast or video, but just to say, like, I don't think either of us plan on ever leaving 5th edition behind unless 6th edition comes around and it's even better.
And I am still excited to see what 1D&D brings us, because I'm always excited about just new D&D stuff. I'm unabashedly like in love with this game.
Yeah. I don't want to ditch 5th edition. Now, if this comes back to haunt us in a few years, and now granted, with the SRD going into Creative Commons, it would be very hard for Wizards to try, a round 2.
Right.
But it's it's I think not very controversial to say that we live in a corporatist dystopia, or at least the opening stages of one.
And it's not even the cool one. It's like,
no, it's not the cool cyberpunk
sucks.
one. Yeah, the SRD going to Creative Commons would make it harder, for sure.
Downright, like nearly impossible for them to be able to do anything about the Creative Commons.
Yeah, we can't look at Hasbro as a just permanently defeated foe. Like, the Hasbro's business model still exists. Their opinions of D&D players still exists. their view of the customers still exists, and their treatment of their employees, both at Hasbro and at Wizards, that still exists. And unless changes happen at the higher levels of those companies, those treatments, those behaviors will likely still go on.
Yeah, they're not a one-time boss, they're a recurring villain.
Yes. This particular fight for the OGL, we won. I think the next step is to, and not everybody might agree with this, but I think the next step is to support the actual design teams and the developers, because I think that they're going to need it, especially with Hasbro planning to fire like something like 1,000 employees.
I just all I did was Google Hasbro, and it said that they're going to lay off roughly 15% of its workforce.
Yeah. Keep an eye on this. Keep an eye out for members of like the D&D design team, or like the D&D Beyond team who, could potentially get sacked by this, because it's not impossible that there's an element of retaliation to this, because Hasbro likely knows, and Wizards likely knows, there was a lot of insider leaks and a lot of resistance and pushback from the D&D team and the D&D Beyond team. So keep an eye out for that. If people end up getting fired from their job at Wizards because they took a stand against this really greedy overreach, support them. If they post on social media that they're looking for a job because they've been fired from Wizards or something, just simply sharing that or dropping a like on that post can help them. It can help spread their story, and with any luck, a company like Pathfinder or like Paizo, or Kobold Press could pick them up and give them a new home where they would be safe.
Yeah, always support the actual game designers and the writers and the artists.
Yeah, the next step of this, I think, is making sure that the people who make the games that we love
keep making games that we love.
Yes, making sure they keep making the games, making sure they know we support them. We just don't love, Wizards the company or Hasbro the company. Be loyal to the people who make the game, not to the brand.
And also, just keep in mind that there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. So don't go after people for still buying new D&D books that come out.
Absolutely.
We're just trying to play a game.
Keep playing, whatever system you want to play, keep playing it. And, let's try to help and to protect the developers who could face retaliation, because they were a crucial part in us being able to even fight this, let alone succeed to the degree that we have. We can all sort of pat ourselves on the back, and we can all, I think, be pretty proud of this community for just mobilizing in such a impressive scale. It's funny that Chris Ko said, he doesn't have to play D&D to understand, because he's worked on video games, and it's basically the same thing. And this, I think, has proven how wrong that statement is.
Absolutely.
Because tabletop RPGs are not like video games. They are not like any other form of entertainment.
Yeah,
or media.
you can turn a video game into a tabletop game. You can turn a tabletop game into a video game. You're going to lose things in the process, whichever way you go.
Yeah,
it's just video games just do not feel the same as tabletop games.
And because you just don't have tabletop RPGs without your players, because the Dungeon Master is just as much, even the players too, the Dungeon Master as well as the players, but I would say the Dungeon Master especially, just because all my fellow Dungeon Masters out there know how much work goes into being a Dungeon Master. But your players and your Dungeon Masters, to an extent, they are an extension of the developers. They are designing games. You are designing levels. You are designing encounters, designing characters and NPCs. You're implementing mechanics into this game. One of the unique things about tabletop RPGs is that you are the player and you are also the developer. Even just by playing your character, you are being a developer. You are, implementing mechanics and, you are creating a character and creating a story. And so it's that level of involvement from tabletop RPG players that makes a huge difference. Because it's not just a game that we play, it is a game that we play, but also a game that we make. When you make a character, you are helping make a game.
Yeah, it sounds. I know it sounds a little cheesy to say it, but playing D&D and tabletop games in general, whether it's Call of Cthulhu, Cyberpunk, Vampire, Monster of the Week, whatever. And again, it's going to sound really cheesy, but it's more of an experience than a game.
Absolutely. And, it's like, it's not an exaggeration to say that these tabletop RPGs belong to us as much as they belong to, the developers and the publishers. Dungeons and Dragons belongs to you just as much as it belongs to Wizards of the Coast. And now there's some, ANCAP out there who's saying, well, actually, they own the rights to it, so it's legally theirs. Shut up. Nobody was talking to you.
Those are all the people that voted in favor of revoking OGL 101 or 1.0.
Because sure, if you only think that the world exists in legal terminology and in where money lies, sure. If that's the bleak worldview you want to have, sure. But in real life, with real human people who have real human experiences, the game belongs to all of the players just as much as it belongs to Wizards of the Coast. Because when you play the game, you make the game. And so it's not an exaggeration to say that these games belong to us. And so that's why I don't think, when I forget what her role was at Wizards. She might have even been at Hasbro. I think it was like Lindsay Williams or something. But when she said, that D&D is undermonetized compared to video games, the reason is because how are you going to microtransaction D&D? Unless you make it fully digital, like we talked about. D&D is undermonetized because, you can't sell us our imagination. You can't sell us, something that we help make.
You can't sell me therapy in a box surrounded by my best friends.
Yes, it's different from video games. You can't monetize it and treat it the same way as video games because it's not the same. Yes, it's a game. And yes, it has fantasy storylines and it borrows elements from video games, and video games certainly borrow elements from it, but it's not a video game. And I think that Wizards and Hasbro has learned that the hard way.
Now, I just hope that they don't try any dumb shit in the future, but if they do, at least we know the community will be very vocal about it.
And we know that we can beat them, is the other thing.
Yes. I mean, we're the ones with the money. We can just not give it to them, and that makes them really mad.
And what they don't understand is that, video games, you can make a bad video game, and then you can come out with a sequel, and then be like, it's different this time, guys. You can sell people a bad video game, or you can be a garbage company and still sell video games because they hit the serotonin release button in people's brains for 30 minutes. But when it comes to tabletop RPGs, if you release a system that I don't like, or if you treat the system that we like, with disrespect, or you try to, monetize it in a predatory way, we can just not play it. People who love 5th edition D&D can just keep playing 5th edition D&D. We can play 5th edition D&D and never buy another Wizards book for the rest of our lives because we have the books and the PDFs and the online, the online resources. Tabletop RPG players have a real weapon with which to fight this kind of thing because we don't have to buy your next game to continue experiencing the game that we like. I might not be able to get I may not be able to experience the next story in Modern Warfare if I don't buy the new Call of Duty, but I can have a million new experiences playing D&D using the same old resources from the book I bought years ago. It's just to reiterate that tabletop RPGs are not video games, and you can't treat them the same way. As for us, I think, we're still going to play 5th edition. I would still like to move forward with playing some Pathfinder on the channel.
Oh yeah, for sure.
100%.
We'll try out a bunch of different systems at some point.
Just in general, I like Pathfinder, and I like, I do want to explore other systems. If you take anything, if you bought like Pathfinder books or some other system, or you got excited for Kobold Press's Black Flag system,
great, be excited and play those systems.
Don't just give up. Don't just don't return your Pathfinder books, please. If you really are not going to play Pathfinder and you're just going to go back to D&D, that's okay. Please donate those books to somebody. If anything should come out of this victory that we have, it should be a newfound, appreciation and discovery of different RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
So if you bought Pathfinder books, give it a try anyway. You can go back to 5th edition, but just give it a try. Just support the TTRPG scene as a whole, because one day there might be a repeat of something like this. It might not go this way. Of course we know we can beat them, but what happens if Wizards or Hasbro decides, screw it, we're gonna sink the whole ship and burn it down and build it back from the ground up, or they think they know better than us and they push through with something terrible, and they do something dumb and they crash D&D and everybody gives up and quits on D&D. If something like that were to ever happen, which I hope it doesn't, and I don't think that it will, because we showed we can win, but if it does, we will all be better off if we started supporting all TTRPGs, now, as opposed to, starting it later. Except maybe Shadowrun. I've heard some things.
Yeah.
Shadowrun players, are you okay? Do you want to talk about it?
I hope you're doing well, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we're incredibly sorry for what's happened to your game, and we hope that things work out for you.
And before we sign off here, I do want to say, what with all the social media fallout and everything from this entire fiasco, don't forget the community members who straight up harassed game designers and writers and artists. Don't forget them. I'm not going to name names, but if you know, you know. And I would suggest maybe not following them anymore.
Yeah, support the people who were active and vocal and helped organize resistance against this. Support third-party content. Support other publishers like Paizo, like Kobold Press. Support people who are publishing D&D content, who just want to share their stories and their games and their ideas with you. And support the people who have to work, at Wizards and at Hasbro, who are there because they love D&D. They love the game that they helped make for us. So just support tabletop RPGs. It's as simple as that. People who make them, people who publish things for them, people who post, free tools and resources for them, and the people who give us this game.
One last thing before we go. I always thought Jeremy Crawford looked like Mark Hoppus from Blink-182.
I see it.
And that is not a slight against either of them. They are both very handsome men. And yeah, fuck corporations. So
yeah,
we're going to go ahead and leave it off there. And then I'll just cut in the previous outro from the first segment of this bit and then put it here. Well, thank you everybody for listening. If you want to get in touch with us, we're on Twitter at AmbiguousPod. You can also like our Facebook page at facebook.com/AmbiguousPod. You can also, do we have at Moral Ambiguity on YouTube? I gotta check that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's youtube.com/@moralambiguity. So you find.
Oh, can I throw out a thing?
Yeah.
I also started a new streamed game called Inkstained with a group of friends over at twitch.tv/Okomi, OKOMIE.
I'll put the link in the description.
We're going to be doing that every other Saturday. and that was our first session was Saturday, and it was a blast. So check that out sometime.
Yeah,
they're a
definitely
great
go check
streamer,
that out.
and the stream was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Support other tabletop RPG games, not out of hate for Wizards or Hasbro, but because they deserve it. Support, third-party resources, places like, 5e Tools. There's tons of them.
There was
Especially,
also for a short time the Trove.
especially the ones that are free. Support the ones that are
free. If you want to do it out of hate,
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
fine.
I'm not gonna-
A lot of good things have come out of. A lot of good things have come out of spite.
You can have a little of spite as a treat.
As a treat, yes.
I was going to say, I think most of the D&D alternatives happened because of spite.
Also, remember, always direct your vitriol at corpo suits and not real human beings.
Yes.
Yeah, I said it before. I say it again. At corporations and anyone who runs PR. Fucking, those are the two.
Don't forget, corporations only do good things so that they have clout to do bad things in the future.
Yep.
This is true. Eat the CEOs in Minecraft.
And don't trust the Unabomber.
All right. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Later.
Yeah.